Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to this week's Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. This is session 10, which means week 10 of this series. My name is Delilah De La Rosa. I am the founder of Depth Worldwide, and also the subject of this series, Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. To my side here is Steven Morrison. He's the creator of Spiritual Workout, which takes center stage in this series. It's what we use to move about through this grief and loss experience that I am having as a result of my mother passing away back in November due to stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He is also the author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. There's a lot of reflection there. And definitely has been the person, the master facilitator here, helping me move through this very pivotal experience. How are you today, Steven?
I'm quite well, thank you for asking, and eager to pick up where we left off.
Yeah. Also want to welcome all non-physical entities. Of course, my mom, wherever you are, Mom. I'd love for your presence to be known, however you feel is fitting. Duder, Steve, who is Steven's partner from also one of the protagonists of An Extra Year. And of course, any and all non-physical entities that would like to be with us today. Welcome, everyone. All right. So now that we have that squared away, where we left off last week was a couple of things. One, well, three main things. One was to ask, why do I, knowing what I know, with the awareness that I have, why do I keep choosing, consciously, subconsciously, but knowing what I know, why do I keep choosing impending doom scenarios, the anxiety experience, the anxious thoughts, the fear-based stuff? Why do I keep on entertaining them, acting on them, acting based on them? That was one of the soul work assignments. The other was to look for literature that really highlights, showcases the ways in which people have been able to communicate with the divine, been able to trust the divine, you receive messages from the divine. And lastly, whatever comes up with my grief and loss intention, with my intention for how I would like to move through this experience after my mother's loss here, physical loss. So with that, I will give you an update, Steven. So yesterday, I actually I did go on ChatGPT to see and ask the question about what kind of literature, is out there that showcases this two-way communication with the divine. It came up with a nice little list, in categories from like different perspectives in which they've had these experiences. I'm happy to report that I already read 2 of the books on that list.
Impressive. I thought
and
that's what you said.
Yeah, the Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson. It doesn't go by that same.
No,
Doesn't
the
go by
book
that.
is called, she lectures about the Course in
Yeah,
Miracles.
Course in Miracles,
It's
but
one
the
of her,
book is I forgot the title, but I
she has
read that book.
lots. It's called A Return to Love, I think.
Yes, A
the
Return to
author.
Love, which
Yeah.
is what I've read. Um, and also Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. I read that years ago. And then there was definitely books on the list that I am very familiar with, been meaning to read.
Mm.
And so there's just a couple that stand out to me that I am intending on reading.
Okay.
And want to prioritize that. I just will say this though, and maybe this is where tapping can come into place because it's kind of like, I guess it may be some form of resistance. But I am having a hard time retaining information and as well as keeping my attention on things that I actually want to pay attention to. Like I at least consciously, I'm wanting to pay attention, but my mind just kind of starts
In a
going
way that's
elsewhere.
unusual for you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not only with it's many different kinds of material. It's not even just one type of material where I'm just like, okay, dozing off. It's like different types of things that I'm like, I'm into this. Like, I like what I'm reading, but for some reason, my mind is just like, or either it switches off or goes into other place, or I just will take something in and not retain it. Like, I'm like, what did I just read? I don't even know. Right. I don't know what that is. Maybe some form of resistance. I guess I could use some tapping on it. But I just wanted to bring that up that I've been experiencing that lately. Now, I definitely did some exploration into why choosing the impending doom experiences. And I keep landing on the kind of the same place of going to the impending doom, imagination, creativity. Yeah, going there because I don't want to experience. I'm wanting to avoid, whether consciously or not consciously, the deeper depths of emotional pain. So, and the reason why I say that is because that hike in anxiety, that spike in anxiety, or anxious thoughts really came off the heels of the suspended heartache that was surfacing.
By which you mean?
Heartache that I had suspended, heartache from the time that my mother was sick and basically departing this realm. The goodbye of it all, like it was like I didn't go all the way there while she was sick. One, logistically, because she got the diagnosis and it wasn't like, all right, you're gonna die, so we're just gonna go there. We had some time in that 2.5-month period where we were like, she wants to live, we're on that tip of we're on that wavelength of let's get her healthy again. Until couple of weeks in, I would say October, she was diagnosed at the end of August. I would say by October, it was getting kind of like, rocky, and that in between place of I don't want to prepare for a departure, saying goodbye to this life on earth.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of an in between, right? And so that's what I mean by suspended heartache,
Yes. Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
I know it's kind of
No,
like
I was pretty sure that's what you're referring to, but also
yes.
just let's be clear. So what Delilah's saying here, and I see this as a common experience, that she had a period of time before her mother transitioned, before she died, of tending to her mom and the situation. And in
Being
that,
present with it.
yes,
Mhm.
and in that way, or as a result, each of us only has so much time and energy every single day to spend. And very often in a caregiving mode, all the time and energy goes into the caregiving. So our own experience of what's going on is what gets suspended, as Delilah was saying. I just wanted to be clear that that was what you were referring to. So
Yes.
here she is just a couple of months later saying, oh, maybe I didn't quite actually ever do that part. And, a few months after a loss like this, that would be pretty typical as well. Most
Yeah.
people don't go home that night and process it all
It's
and
all
wake
good.
up the next day done.
Fun.
We're getting there, but most
Yeah.
people are nowhere near that at the moment. So what happened, part of what we've been talking about in the last week or two or three is some, and stop me, Delilah, if I'm mischaracterizing, but some chronic dynamic wherein Delilah finds herself one way or another in a place of entertaining, as she calls it, impending doom scenarios. What if this terrible thing happens? What if that terrible thing happens? What if that terrible thing happens? And because it's not a new idea, and what I challenged Delilah with last week and really appreciate her willingness to even grok what I was saying, much less be willing to dive into it, was none of us ever really does anything that doesn't serve us in some way. So
Mhm.
when we catch ourselves or notice ourselves in a situation that we just keep doing the same thing that we don't like, it's not bringing us any pleasure, it's not bringing us any joy, it's frustrating because here I am again in this situation. So the question is, or the idea is, it's got to be serving a person somewhere or they wouldn't be doing it. That's sort
And
of
it
a
does in this
universal
way. It
idea.
does in this way in that it's like the age old thing, kind of trite, but that's what it is. It feels like by worrying, by entertaining these impending doom
Yes,
scenarios, I'm protecting myself.
exactly.
Okay.
So,
And it feels that way. If you've noticed over the past several weeks, one of the common themes or common words that have been coming up, blindsided.
yeah.
It's like blindsided.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I feel like I can't withstand being blindsided. And not blindsided by success and beauty and amazing shit, right? Which
Right.
no, blindside me, right? Like,
Yeah. Like
I
the
love that.
rug getting pulled out.
Madonna's borderline blindside me. Okay. No. I still haven't heard that one yet, by the way. But okay. Um, like it's more blindsided by the impending doom stuff. You know what I mean? By
So
the un,
you're always,
by the unwanted.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're running some idea. I don't want this terrible thing to ever happen, but I'm going to keep thinking about this terrible thing happening.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
And
now,
I
why
know
would a
better.
person continue to do that? And what Delilah is saying with some tremendous courage, if you ask me, is I think I'm doing that because it, as awful and uncomfortable and annoying as it is, it's probably better than going into as you so aptly put it, I think you wrote that, said the deeper depths of this loss experience, the fact that your mom is no longer here in the physical.
Yeah.
So that begs the question, are you ready to continue this conversation, or did you want to touch something else
I think
first?
I may want to add to that because I feel
Okay.
like there's little different points that it goes
Okay.
into different little points. So there's
Yeah.
one where it's like, oh, I don't in some way, even though my conscious mind is like, no, I will cry, I will feel it, like I don't mind it, right?
Hmm.
But I just saw 2 weeks ago how I got moved by heartache, just that surfaced. And I was
Hmm.
like, all right, I'm just going to go in, I'm just going into it. It's coming up and I'm just going into it. And I was crying, I was sobbing, went to a funeral, which had even more of that, where people were experiencing it. Although we had
Hmm.
that nice little uplifting round of applause, which was
Yeah.
really awesome, you know, but I just noticed that like right off the heels of that is when I got super cranked up with the anxiety and like the worst case scenario, the blah blah. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. That is in some way, right? Not wanting me to go there.
Yeah.
But
That's
I
really
felt like
good.
that was an example
Okay.
of what I tend to do in different scenarios. So for instance, uh, with the health anxiety.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, um, I was talking to my cousin, my really close cousin, Ete, who you know.
Hmm.
Um, and was actually, I was talking to her yesterday and she was experiencing some health stuff where she had to go to the ER. She's like, I don't mean to scare you guys, but I have to go to the ER because they found fluid in my heart, and it was weird because I was just coming off of a phone call with the Peruvian professional that she hooked me up with. And we talked about the health anxiety stuff,
Hmm.
right? How he was saying that, yeah, his being having a physician background, sometimes that little discomfort in the ear, he says that he'll think it could be cancer, right? And I'm like, why are you telling me this? Isn't I don't think that I was like, I don't think that's healthy for me to like entertain that. I don't know if that's right. And he was like, no, but look, he's like, if you're feeling uncomfortable about something, you go to get it checked out. Right. And I'm like, see, I don't do that. I'm the opposite. I'm actually more of like, oh my God, this is coming up. And then I entertain all the impending doom scenarios of getting a fucked up diagnosis and da 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 da. And I rather not go. I rather
Hmm.
not go. And he was just like, oh, so you basically um um avoid the possibility by just not going. Right. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, that's what I do, And so I feel like, in a way, and I mentioned this last week, um, my soaring, like my deigning to soar or like do something good, empowering, reaching new heights, the impending doom scenarios start coming in. Why? Because if I soar, then that's a long way down. It's almost as if I think the freaking La Bamba shit, where it's like, if I soar, if I succeed or I'm succeeding, that's going to prompt the other shoe falling.
Icarus flying a little too close to the sun, that whole thing. Yeah.
I think that's, and a part of me is kind of like, gosh, this feels so trite. Like, it feels like that's what like a lot of people do. But then it's like, that's what it is. So whatever, no judgment.
Well, so in this moment, you are aware of your tendency to avoid deep shit, even though you're all about working through deep shit. I mean, I know that for a fact. And
So
yet,
I guess
there.
that's why I get so tired, is because there's a lot of gas
So
gas
the
pedal brake,
tired,
gas pedal brake, gas
the
pedal brake.
tired, listening to inspiration wise, that feeling of tired from this dynamic, from that, is evidence of being out of alignment. That's all. That's the signal. That's the guidance. Oh, if I'm feeling tired from this, that's evidence that something's out of whack for me and who I am and the truth of me. That's all that means. That's what having this, inner guidance system is all about. That's the spiritual part of us. That's the being part of the human beings we are, connected to more than just the physical reality and communicating with us through the thing that everybody wants to avoid, feeling.
Yeah. And it's just such a weird thing. It's such a weird thing, Steven, because it's probably why I've been feeling this month pretty much, like this month in particular, like just physically, like the mind body connection has been really strong this month. Like, oh my God, it's been so strong this month. From even feeling like that suspended heartache, willing to go there, and then kind of feeling the little hot points, the tingliness, the numbing of my, like around my heart and my left side. I went to go to another practitioner today to check it out, and there was stuff that came up. So that was okay. Like I feel a little bit more. So I know that I'm still like recovering physically, as well as, my other areas in my life. But I'm definitely like in the healing process. Right. And it just feels like there's so many like inner conflicts between, where I want to go and the old stuff, that's kind of making things a little rocky, and I feel it manifesting in my body.
Well, let's first just remember that the combination of contending with what this series is about, the combination of this processing this loss experience for you, connected to, and let's just say connected to dynamics in your life up until now, issues that you've had. In other words, it's no different. There's some of this material that's fresh and new from this experience, and there's some of this material that is Delilah's stuff. Themes that you've had throughout your life. We all have them.
I feel like this thing with my mom, this experience of physically losing my mom, is the opportunity that I have. And I'm going to say the opportunity because I know I have to make the choice, right?
Yes.
About that's where the intention comes in. And I wanted to add to that intention. It's another thing I want to bring up, another update, because I was listening to a spiritual influencer on a podcast speaking about uncertainty and how she's making, it's kind of corny the way she says it, but the content is there. But she's like, how to make uncertainty my bitch. Whatever. Okay. But you get what she's trying to get at.
Instagrammable.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. However, the content of the podcast was actually really good. And she had this really great line that inspired me to put it into my loss intention,
Yep.
And it was that she was like, look, it's because of the uncertainty, not in spite of it, that I am growing into the person that I'm meant to be.
Good.
That not in spite of this, but because of this.
Well, that's what it means in our world when we talk about
growth, using this
we
as
are here for a reason.
Yes.
That means there are no accidents. That means as spiritual beings having human experiences, every experience is for our growth and development. And the more we pay attention to that, the more we see our issues showing up as we're talking about, regardless of what's going on.
So I had mixed into all of this soup,
Mm-hmm.
I think the very next day after our last week's session, I was going right into the like, why do you keep choosing the anxiety, the anxious thoughts? Why do you keep choosing the impending doom? And two things that came up, well, outside of, what I just said,
Mm-hmm.
but there was this other thing where I couldn't quite grasp why some spiritual folks in my life, spiritual practitioners, would say that my mom's transition was a gift to me, and like I could understand what they were saying poetically, but I couldn't really grasp, connect, integrate that where I was at the time. You're
Mm-hmm.
right. I wasn't resistant. I just didn't
Yeah.
fully grasp what that meant, what that looked like. Right. But then I did last week after our session and going into the why choose the impending doom. And I'm like, okay, my mom, she's a part of me. Okay. My mom is like, I'm like, she's a part of me. And in this realm, like in her non-physical, even more so a part of me, like can easily like, be with me versus when she was here in 3D and, she was in New York and I was over here and what, now she can be with me all the time, in me, through me, da, 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 da. That's what I was thinking. And I was also thinking, I was like, okay, impending doom scenarios, my mother I could transmute this physical loss into spiritual gain in that her non-physical energy can be my belief in self, can be my trust. Like that's how I was going there with that she could be the trust, be the belief in self, capital S. And I also thought about the self-belief, and how the part that plays in entertaining impending doom scenarios and
In what sense do you mean?
self-belief, self-trust.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And how I feel like I kind of lost that in the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that by going through this experience, at least in terms of with respect to this part of it, this aspect of like what I went through with my mom dying, getting sick and dying and taking care of her, it was like one of my worst nightmares. Truly. I mean, I think I've even said that before, right?
Yes.
It was like one of my worst nightmares. And I thought that it's like, well, look, I can trust myself. I can double down on myself because look at how I fucking rose to the occasion and seen my fucking mom dying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that would, and I remember the other spiritual practitioners, not just you, Steven, I cheat on you. No,
Away.
no, you guys are all part of my harem. My spiritual harem. No, we're family. We're family. But they would, like one of them, she was just like, look, you rose to the occasion. I remember this was like one of your like worst nightmares. And look at how you like rose to the occasion. I'm like, I know, but why isn't it transmuting into self-trust? I know what that feeling feels like. I know what it feels like that I will do what I need to do when it's time to do it. Like I know that feeling, which is why I lived much more boldly, expressively, like, you know what I mean? Intentionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a little bit like, wow, I thought that just by that experience that I would gain that, but no, it wasn't a clear transformation there. Like it didn't turn into that right away.
Right.
I think it is turning into that now, the
Yes.
more I go into it,
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is because I was like, okay, so I may not have that feeling locked in, that belief and energy locked in of self-trust, self-belief, that knowing like, oh, you know what? Like I'm feeling a little pain in my stomach. I'm gonna go get it checked out because I know that whatever comes up, I'm gonna be able to handle it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what my cousin was telling me yesterday. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, she has a history of like impending doom, anxious scenarios. She was like, look, I get it for a minute or two, but then I'm like, no, I'd rather go checked out and address it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
my husband. I don't do that. However, I was like, in what way, where in my life do I feel that kind of security? Where do I feel that kind of security? And it was like in my being a kind and compassionate being. Like no one can tell me anything about that. Be like, oh, you're not a kind and compassionate. I'll be like, okay, whatever.
Right.
I feel 100%, or at least erring on that side.
Unfuckwithable.
Yes. When it comes to kindness
Yes.
and compassion. Like no one can fuck with me on that one. I'm like, like I'm like 100% solid. And where do I get that from? My mom and dad. But my family, like
Mm-hmm.
they're very kind, compassionate peoples. You met some of them.
Yeah.
And definitely my mom. My mom was definitely radiating kindness and compassion and openness. And that's where I'm like 100% no. So I'm like, okay, maybe there is something to what I was saying about transmute, like her gifting me and her non-physical, that self-trust, that self-belief, just as much as she gave me the kindness and compassion, or like, transferred that, left that imprint, fueled that for me,
Modeled it.
Help me cultivate that.
Yes.
So yeah, there's
You've been busy.
Yeah. I mean, I take it very seriously because I really do see this as an opportunity for me to transform that once and for all, like in that way, I do see it as like a gift, an opportunity for me to soar.
And when you think of soaring now, what does it conjure?
Feels nice. It feels like light and expansive. And then I gotta be honest, Steven.
Well, this is why I'm asking. I'm basically testing.
And then when I'm like letting myself go there, here it comes again. Here it comes again. I'm like, how long is it gonna last? And that was happening with me over the course of
the question, how long is it going to last, is rooted in what belief?
This is not my baseline. It's not possible for this to be my baseline. It's not scarcity too, perhaps. Not enoughness. But really, I think it's just like the possibility of this being my baseline.
A new default.
Yes.
Okay. It's not possible. There you go. I mean,
that's undergirds that. Yeah. And I was feeling that over the course of the week. Like when I noticed on Monday, I was like, hey, I'm actually feeling okay in my body as I'm heading over to Pilates. Like I don't feel crappy like I've been the last couple of weeks. Like I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
good. And then as I was like walking over to Pilates, I was like, oh, how long is this gonna last? And that's when I started to feel like shit. And
Right.
I was like,
Because the doubt, because you're feeling like shit, because you're believing that what you want is not possible. That
yeah.
is always going to feel shitty. Always. That's why we do what we do the way we do it here, because we acknowledge, we're not denying that we have doubt. We're not denying that we don't even believe that what we want is possible. We're just separating the beliefs that we have about what is and isn't possible from what we want, so that we can stay focused on what we want and undo, transmute, transform the beliefs that we have that say we can't have what we want. And then we ultimately align with what we want. The only other, well, there are two other alternatives. One, give up what we want. And the other is just stay stuck forever, have highs and lows, on, off, good days, bad days, and wish, hope, and pray for more good days than bad days. And
I know. And I
that's
know
just not terribly satisfying for people who like to live consciously the way that we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. 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 So that's where I am, Stephen. I will say that the when my cousin, it coming off the heels of the conversation I had with the proven
Right.
doctor, and he was like, yeah, he was like, look, I was a physician. This is the type of stuff that comes up for us too. It's like this little pain in the belly could be cancer. He's the type of person, he's not gonna he gives it to you straight, no chaser.
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
just wants to know. Yeah.
and he'll say he's not about coddling in his own way. Like I know you told me I'm not about coddling either. And he's definitely not, because what I was expecting is for him to be like, look, the likelihood of that little pain being XY being cancer or some crazy shit, is pretty low. So put your attention on what you want, or put your attention on other things, blah blah blah. No, he didn't say. He was like, look, I've been dealing with a lot of folks who've been sick and stuff. And yeah, there is stuff that comes up. Like, this is what it is. And I was like, what? Like when he told me about that, having a pain in his ear lobe or something. And he was just like, yeah, I was worried that it could possibly be cancer, because I've had other examples of patients that have come in and talked about X, Y, and Z. And then it turns out to be this, this, and that. And so he's like, so it's not about saying that that's not going to happen. There's no guarantee that that's not going to happen. Right. And I was like, this is not, I was like, I don't think it's actually like healthy for me to go right to like, oh my God, it's going to be cancer. Like this one little pain in my stomach or whatever, and he's just like, no, but he was like, look, if you're feeling worried about it, you go get it checked out. And I'm like, see, I don't end up doing that. Right. Anyway, when I got off the phone with him, that's when my cousin sends over the text that she's like, going to the ER, that she's actually been feeling kind of badly in the last couple of weeks. And that they actually went and did a scan to check her pancreas. And that's when, and everything is good, everything's fine. She went to the ER. Everything seems fine. They just don't know what's going on with the fluid in her heart, right? They did see that. And then I saw, when I looked at my mother's phone, because I still have my mother's phone on, some messages that my uncle and aunts they've been corresponding, and there was like a little scare with my grandfather. And both of those things combined, I just started crying, and I was like, I think I'm still feeling this, the heartache that has surfaced. I'm feeling it, I'm allowing myself to feel it. And I'm also being very conscious, very aware of how going there can prompt the impending doom scenarios.
Well, yeah, we found the golden
I
key.
saw that yesterday with those experiences, because I was like, oh, and she was like, yeah, I'm just having a lot of pain here and there. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, like, it started bringing up the impending doom thoughts. And I was like, okay, I see what's going on. I'm feeling the heartache and then da-da-da. Okay. Yeah.
So what is it meaning to you? What are you thinking about over the course of this last week when this conversation started in our session? And I think you even, if I remember correctly, your immediate response to that question, why would you choose impending doom thoughts over and over and over again, was basically this. It was your initial intuitive hit, and it sounds like that's just persisted over this time. So we know for sure the answer to the question, why would you? And especially, so on top of that,
like, I would rather keep the suffering conceptual than actually live through it.
It's the exact same reason you do the opposite of what that practitioner does. He goes immediately, oh, I felt a little thing, maybe it's cancer, and goes immediately to it because he wants to know. And you don't want to know. It's the exact same thing. So it begs first I want to reiterate, because I don't think I can say it enough, your Delilah's courage and in your willingness to even entertain the question. Most people would say, I'm not choosing to think impending doom thoughts. They are intruding upon me.
Mm-hmm. The pull is strong. The pull is strong, but
absolutely
I know.
It is.
I know.
So your willingness to even take in the question is, I feel like an idiot saying this, who am I to say? It's highly commendable.
Thank you.
As somebody who does this kind of work. And so, again, I can't say that strongly enough. That you would then, not only in the moment, have sort of an intuitive hit about it, but then continue to explore it all this week as you have. And then on top of that, for further verification. So I'm very confident that this is the answer. Could there be another answer? Maybe. Let's see. But I'm confident because A, it was your initial intuitive hit. B, it has only gotten stronger over the course of the week. And C, you tested it out.
Yeah, because I
noticed it's like, oh, here I go into impending doom, but look what just happened that's got me there. So those are three, if you ask me, very powerful. Look, when it comes to listening to inspiration, another person can't really tell us what our inspiration is. Except every once in a while we kind of can, depending on the relationship and all of that. And I feel very confident that this is, like I say, there could be other answers that will emerge over time, but why would I choose impending doom scenarios time and again over the course of many, many years?
Because I want to keep the doom in conceptual as a concept.
Yes.
So I don't want to live the doom.
Exactly. I don't want to be blindsided.
I don't want to live the doom, even though I am living the doom by
even worse, because it never ends.
I know.
It never
I'm
ends.
living the doom by conceptualizing the doom.
Correct.
Right? And visualizing the doom.
But again, why would a person do that? Because basically what you're doing is hitting the pause button on the rest of your life, on that piece. It's just sitting there.
Because I want to avoid the doom in reality, like living. Yes.
Right. So now that begs the question.
Which could possibly be, now that I'm thinking of it, because I want to keep the doom conceptual, it's probably impacting my ability to retain information, to my attention on the things that serve me better, and visualizing what I want. Because I've been having issues with that.
And you now know why. because it's just an energetic
It
traffic jam.
is.
There's
It
too
is.
much there
Yes.
to
Yes.
be able to get a clear read and a clear. So yeah, I'm reading the book, but it's not making it all the way because you've just generated a fair amount of traffic, of static, energetically. So again, to me, as we're talking about this, the question that it begs is, what is the worst case scenario for you? Going into the deeper depths, as it were, what's the worst about making that doomsday scenario where it's conceptual more preferable than what might be real? What is the concern? What's the doubt? What's the worry? What's the fear? What's the worst thing that would happen?
That it will take over me. That the I think I mentioned a little bit before, last week's session, not being able to withstand the pain, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever, the pain, not being able to withstand the pain, not being able to bounce back. And to be very honest with you,
Yes.
when I think about that time that I was, when my mom was sick and my brother and I were taking care of her, and I think about that time and how I felt in my body, just in myself, like my system, and it just felt so, so shook, so like kind of like the body in shock, and then this heaviness on top of that. It was like this butterflies, but not in a good way, negative butterflies, and a heaviness, just this like deep rooted fear, like shock in my system that honestly, Steven, I don't ever want to go through again. It was so, and I went through it. I mean, I lived through it, but it just was so, all consuming. Even though it didn't consume me all the way because I'm still here, but it just, it was, in a way, it's like my mom's not living past 2.5 months after the diagnosis. It was like, I don't even know how I would have been able to sustain whatever presence I had for longer, So,
and as you hear yourself talk about this now, how does it sit with you?
It kind of
beliefs about the worst thing that could happen.
Feels like I feel like there's this inner pulling me down kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because when we become conscious of what we're believing that is related to what we're resisting, fearing, the beliefs themselves don't feel good. That's why we're doing everything we can to dance around and avoid all that stuff, right? So this is that part. I know you've witnessed this in spiritual workout over the course of many years. This is where we go fishing for the beliefs that are at the root of the issue. And we know as we write them down one by one, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them written down just based on what you just said, right? And then you just described it. It feels heavy, and right? They don't feel good. The thing to remember is this is not the end point. We don't just get to all these icky feeling beliefs and then hang out with them or not do anything. This is the next step, is to transmute and transform them as and when you're ready to do that. But just conceptually, what's going on here, just to keep the the thread and the
Can I just
picture.
add one thing?
Yes.
Please hold that thought, please, please, please.
I'll
But
do my best.
I have to bring this up because it's very specific to what I was just talking about.
Sure.
Another part of the worst case scenario,
Yes.
making the appropriate decisions if my quote unquote back is against the wall. So that was another thing that came up with my mom.
So you'll make a bad decision?
Yeah, like for example, when my mom was diagnosed, it was like we had to make a decision about treatment. How are we moving forward? That is another thing that feels very weighty and very, very much something that I'm wanting to avoid. So what is that? I feel like it all boils back to like self-trust, self-belief, right?
Yeah, because when you believe, you know you'll know what to do when it's time to do it, then you wouldn't say what you just said.
It's like, yeah.
So
so cultivating that self-trust, got to get that intention out, the self-trust, the self-belief. I know what to do when it's time to do it. And also trust in the universe, which is the literature that I'm going to read.
Right. So what I was starting to say earlier was just sort of a bit of a recap to keep the thread going here for my own edification as much as anything. That the question that arose last week, why would a person, Delilah specifically, but anybody, continue to do a thing over time consistently, regardless of really what's going on, or triggered in so many different kinds of ways over time? Why would a person continue to, and we use the word choose because at a certain point it is a conscious choice. It's like impending doom. I don't like impending doom thoughts. They feel shitty. They make me anxious and everything. And yet I keep finding myself there. So the question is, based on the idea that none of us humans ever do anything, this is just a universal law that,
and I feel safe when I acquiesce to those thoughts.
Yes, it brings its anxiety, but it's comfortable. It's familiar. It's like, oh, I'm in impending doom. I mean, I've known you.
Because then it's like, I don't do the thing. So I'm kept in my little.
Exactly. And I love the way you phrase it.
Really that safe.
Right. You keep it conceptual, but it's better, even if, sometimes the choice is what? Between what?
Conceptual doom versus actual doom.
No, more generally speaking, when we're making choices, sometimes the choice is between poop and crap, we often say, right? Yes. So impending doom, thinking about impending doom sucks.
Yes.
But it sucks a little bit less.
Yes, than actually going through impending doom.
Actually going into the depths, the deepest depths of what the reality is. This is what I'm saying. It's an amazing, I don't like to use that word. It's a powerful and
it's better than going into the uncertainty of life. It's better than accepting that you don't have control over every single thing. Accepting the uncertainty.
That you could be blindsided.
Yeah. Yes. Accepting that.
Right. So
it's better than my going into the acceptance. And this is all quotes, better, right?
Yes, right. Yeah. But now we know what has been preventing Delilah from going into the depths of it, to the reality. And it's these beliefs. It'll take me over. I'll never stop crying. I can't tell you how many people come to me in grief and loss, and they say they haven't cried, and it's been some time, and they feel like they should cry. And the reason that they don't is to a person, they say, I will never stop crying. That's the belief they have. I will never stop crying. It will take me over, right? So that's a legitimate belief anybody would have, and it's a good reason to stay away from doing it. The same with, I won't be able to withstand the pain, even though you have been withstanding the pain, right? I won't bounce back. All the reasons you have. So now that's where the work goes. when you're ready to do that part, because not a whole lot else is going to happen. That's not true. You can still be cultivating your intention as you're starting to articulate it. You can still do all the reading in the world with regard to trusting God and the universe and all of that kind of stuff. And you can address these shitty feeling beliefs, excuse me, as and when you're ready to. Because letting go of this family of beliefs will put you into a space, I dare say, you've not ever been in.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure you've lived a whole lot of life without this belief system.
Yeah, I definitely, like I mentioned before, I definitely know what it feels like to have that belief of, I know what to do when it's time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that before I've had it 100%.
I
Right?
get it. I know it's reasonably new for you. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like
and so is
I
every.
know that feeling, but I lost a lot of what I had over the
Yes.
last 10 years.
Well, it's so easy for that to return. It is
Yeah,
returning.
it's returning.
And this is the next step, to transmute, transform these non-serving beliefs so that you can align with your intention for this process and the other intentions you have for your life. And all the you could probably look back now and see other triggers for the impending doom. I mean, I know you're familiar with it and you don't necessarily need to see anything in particular. I'm just saying you can see the pattern, you know it's a pattern, and now and we know how it has served you, and it will continue to serve you until you change your mind and say you want to do something else.
Do you think that for some people, heartache is just something that is not that it's impossible to experience, or be able to address and experience, or experience and address. But do you think that there are some beings out there where that experience of heartache, for example, is like just extra impactful?
Well, sure, but it's only extra impactful based on that person's being, their life, their experiences, and fundamentally what they believe.
Yeah.
It still is going to boil down to what they believe. Why anyone believes what they believe is different, perhaps, for all of us. And that's why we always say there's zero judgment about any beliefs that any of us have. Any of us walking around with the beliefs we currently have, we have every right to have. Whether they serve us or not is the only question. And so often in this practice, what I see, and is so common, it just seems to be the way we're designed as humans. And don't ask me why it's like this, because I wouldn't have designed it this way, I say, ha ha ha. But
Yeah.
the idea, right. So what were we just saying? That
the heartache,
right. So that experience of heartache is, and the person who's really struggling versus the person who's struggling less, it's just going to be the belief system. So we all have a right to every belief we have. The only question is, does the belief serve us? What I started to say was the way our system is set up, we often, as young little kids, like single digit ages, 0 to 7, 8, 9, 10, life happens. We take on beliefs. Sometimes they're just spoon fed. Money doesn't grow on trees. Got it? Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Or sometimes they're conclusions we make. I'm 4 years old. Mommy and daddy are fighting all the time. And so I decide, I make a conclusion. Wow, mommies and daddies fight all the time. Relationships are hard. I probably wouldn't say it that way as a 4-year-old, but I've now taken on that belief, right? Mm-hmm. And now I'm 35, 40, 45, 50. Why am I having no good, healthy relationships, right? So the point being that the beliefs serve us for a period of time, and then that same exact belief stops serving us. So again, no judgment ever toward anyone for any beliefs that they have. The only question is, can I get to where I want to go with the belief system that I have? Gas, pedal, brake. If the answer is yes, I can, it really serves me to believe that it serves me to believe that I am emotionally intelligent. That might be a belief somebody has, right? It's like, well, carry that one around. That's likely to help you and serve you very well. Whereas the belief that I'm a piece of shit, if anyone really knew the real me, they wouldn't like me, right? Or want me or accept me. So that is an example of a belief that we have every right to have that's been one's experience, but it doesn't serve that one if they want to move around in the world and have successful relationships and a successful career and friends and all of that kind of stuff. Then either give up the desire for those things or give up the belief that says it can't happen. That's all we're ever doing.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. So what would you say in this moment, or how close to addressing this particular family of beliefs, the worst that would happen, do you feel like you are? Is this imminent, like in the coming days and week, or is this, I'm not sure yet, or let's do it right now, or where are you roughly speaking right now?
I feel like I'm in it, like I am in it and focused on working that out.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I said, I really do feel like this experience with losing my mom physically in this realm is giving me this opportunity, like this gift to address this once and for all.
Yeah, I think so too.
And not just for me personally, but also like my ancestral line.
Yes.
When, as you were talking about what we may have seen as we were children and beliefs that we may have had about heartache, I just remembered like some of the things that I've experienced and witnessed, as I was growing up, and why I could have this dynamic with heartache.
Yeah.
Or that emotional pain.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
And how that impacted my ancestors, like, members of my family.
Yeah.
And they're not doing certain things or doing things, but not feeling 100% about themselves in it.
Yes. Yes. I get it. So I don't know about you, but it feels to me like this is not the moment to do that.
No. I got to eat.
But we can do it one of two ways. We can let it sit with you between now and next week, see where you are. Maybe it'll all be done on your own. Maybe we come in next week and say, okay, I haven't even thought about it. Let's start tapping through some of these old non-serving beliefs. We can do it that way. Maybe you want to talk between now and our scheduled next session and just record doing some of the tapping together. Or you might just want to do it on your own and report back in. What do you think? You don't even have to decide right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just playing with
I think filling it out. I think I want to fill it out because I've just noticed that these days it's like sometimes things will surface and I'm like, oh, okay. Like in the last couple of weeks, it's been that way.
Yes.
And other times it's been like, oh, I'm not really feeling much, but it comes up like the day of or the day before, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, well, I was rocking and rolling and then boop, this comes up.
Well, we're on the calendar for next week. So at a minimum, we'll just reconvene then. If you want to reach out between now and then, let me know. And, and again, I really am quite impressed by your commitment to yourself, to your own growth, the dedication you have to yourself in this process, the drive that you have to not walk away from this experience to use it as a vehicle for your growth and development, which is the basis of our practice in the first place. You've been in spiritual workout for quite some time, more than anybody else other than me. You've seen a lot of what we do, and this is what we do. And a lot of people, do it this way, and a lot of people don't. And there's zero judgment about any of it. I continue to appreciate you and your willingness and your journey and your process. And it's an honor and a privilege to walk this with you. So thank you.
Well, I can't even thank you enough, Steven, for being with me by my side as I have gone through this. I mean, even from like diagnosis, like before we did this series, it was just like, from when my mom was diagnosed. I mean, we were always in communication, like, before that, but definitely once we got that diagnosis, you were one of the first people that I talked to and continue to talk to like throughout the whole experience. And you worked with my mom too, so firsthand what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to know my mom for quite a bit,
Yeah.
and she really felt so she felt so comfortable around you, where she was able to really like unpack some stuff that she held in for quite a bit of time, and so I'm forever grateful to you for that, and for holding my hand, not coddling, but holding my hand, patting me on the back. And I really appreciate your sharing those words about my moving through this process, because I kept telling myself in the last couple of weeks how I felt like I've been missing that drive, missing determination that I felt I had before. But what you just said right now, I'm like, no, I just
You've got it focused on this for now.
Yeah. So thank you for that, because that was a blind spot.
You're welcome. That was easy.
That was a blind spot that I definitely had. I literally was saying, I was like, I don't know what happened to my drive, but
oh my God.
Yeah.
It's right here.
I know. Maybe there's some beliefs there about like, struggle and drive.
Right,
like if I'm not struggling, grinding, then it's not drive, because I don't feel like I'm grinding, struggling through this process. Like I'm wanting and driven to do it.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm flowing into that. This is not like, okay, I got the willpower to do, I need the willpower.
Correct.
No, doesn't feel like that.
It doesn't work that way.
Why I wasn't seeing it as drive and determination. So thank you for that. That was
are welcome.
Awakening.
Good.
Well, all right. So we know what's in store. We're gonna feel it out within the next week. And thank you once again, Steven. Steven Morrison, everyone, creator of Spiritual Workout, author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. Love you so much. I'm signing out. Delilah De La Rosa, founder of Deaf Worldwide. And the person that is working it out through unconventional wisdom on grief and loss, which we always say should be more conventional, but whatever.
At a minimum, it's spiritual workout style. So
there we go. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place, YouTube Live. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
All right.
Have a good one. Bye, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.